before I get over to the rebroadcast of this week's 5 Minutes at the Frat House, a couple of things I'm going to throw out to you. I guess just for your consideration, a couple of things that came up in the past couple of days I kind of found a little bit interesting. The NFL schedule was released on Thursday evening, and one of the controversies that kind of came out of it was that the Super Bowl defending champion Baltimore Ravens will be opening up on the road. Now, that's apparently a little bit unusual. I really never gave it much thought. I never really took a look too closely to notice that apparently the tradition has been that the defending champion gets to open their season at home. However, due to a conflict with the Baltimore Orioles playing on that same day, I guess the same day and time, it was requested that the Orioles consider moving their game so that the Ravens could host their game at home, and apparently they could not come to an agreement. So, in fact, now the Baltimore Ravens will open on the road. Rex Ryan, the head coach for the New York Jets, he kind of weighed in on it yesterday and made some comments regarding it, thinking that it was completely absurd and ludicrous, and really had some rather stern Rex Ryan-type words for the Baltimore Orioles, to which the skipper of the Baltimore Orioles came back, Buck Showalter, and, basically told Rex Ryan to mind his own damn business. And that basically what he ought to be doing is concentrating more on the game that the Jets are going to have to play against the Baltimore Ravens and how they're going to beat them. Basically told him, mind your own business. Pay attention to your own team. Well, I say hooray to Buck Showalter. Frankly, I think the whole thing is a lot to do about nothing. Why the heck should the Orioles have to change their schedule? I'm not quite sure what exactly the issue is in light of the fact that, let's remember, the Ravens and the Orioles do not play at the same venue. The venues are separated, I believe, by about a block or so. I've been down there. In fact, I was down to an Orioles game last summer. And at the time that we were there for the Orioles game, the game itself wasn't actually going on, but fans were starting to come into Camden Yards. At that same time, down at the stadium that the Ravens play in, there was a big international soccer match going on. And from what I could tell, the house was packed. So it's not a situation where you can't have two sporting events going on at the exact same time. I don't know if the concern was one coming from the city to the extent of the infrastructure, perhaps parking issues, when you've got two teams playing perhaps at the exact same time. I don't know if that's the issue. But nonetheless, I kind of feel that it's a bit presumptuous and a little bit egotistical on the part of the NFL, or specifically the Baltimore Ravens, to say, hey, we're the big bad NFL MLB, and by the way, you need to change your schedule. Let's not forget that it's very, very possible that the Baltimore Orioles could, in fact, be, at that time that this game would be being played, they could be fighting for a playoff spot themselves, or or going to the playoffs. So why should they have to necessarily change their schedule? Of course, I guess matters will get worse, and there'll be a lot more static about this if, in fact, perhaps maybe the Baltimore Orioles are not even contenders for the playoffs. Then you're really going to hear some noise, I suppose, at that time, if, in fact, that's the case. If they perhaps maybe are, say, in fourth place in the AL East, then there's going to be some real noise in early September when a lot of people are going to be pissing and moaning over the fact that the Baltimore Ravens have to play on the road while, in fact, the Baltimore Orioles, who aren't even contenders, are playing a home game. Nonetheless, I still feel that it is a bit presumptuous on the part of the NFL to be sitting there dictating to Major League Baseball that we have to modify our schedules simply because we're the bigger, brawnier NFL. And so I throw it out to you guys. 347-237-5373. I asked the question, should the Baltimore Orioles have to change their schedule just to simply accommodate the Super Bowl champion Baltimore Ravens to be able to play their first game at home. Should that be the case? Throw it out to you. You've heard my opinion. Let me hear yours. 347-237-5373. The other thing that's been on my mind now for a couple of days, and you're not going to hear the last from me on this particular topic. I'm probably going to be ranting about this one for a little bit. The other day, the NCAA released to Oregon a preliminary report, 515-page document, which outlined to Oregon and the Oregon Ducks football program violations that they uncovered in recruiting. Those violations apparently took place over the period of about 4 years under the helm of then head coach of the Oregon Ducks, Chip Kelly. The president of Oregon has already, in fact, signed off on the document indicating, and in fact, Oregon has admitted to recruitment violations. There is some indication that apparently they're disputing one or two of the accounts and violations that are listed in the preliminary report. And, in fact, Oregon has already suggested to the NCAA that, in fact, they would self-impose a 2-year ban on themselves. This is yet to be accepted by the NCAA, and I think that this is going to go on for just yet a little bit longer until the NCAA actually releases its final report. The issue I have here is not so much with the fact that perhaps maybe Oregon did or did not violate any rules with regard to recruitment, but my issue goes more to this whole concept of head coaches and them being able to get out of, if for want of a better word, get out of having to feel any of the wrath of any kind of sanctions by skipping out and going over to the NFL, which is exactly what Chip Kelly did when he made the move over to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, we saw this a couple of years ago at USC when Pete Carroll made a similar move out to the Seattle Seahawks. To me, it's somewhere along the line, it seems to me that there needs to be some kind of agreement between the NCAA and the NFL. Now, I recognize that there are clear lines between the two, I guess, governing bodies of these athletic endeavors. However, for a program, namely in this case Oregon, and those student athletes to in fact have to bear the penalty for something that perhaps Chip Kelly either knowingly or unknowingly, or just by virtue of sitting on his hands or looking the other way, recognizing that perhaps maybe something was going on, but, oh, well, I don't know exactly all it is, but I'm not going to ask any questions. Because of that and his failure to do his job, you're going to have other students and a program penalized, while he gets the benefit of, in fact, moving on, and it, I guess, let's make no mistake about it, advancing his career. I've got a little bit of a problem with that. I had a problem with it with Pete Carroll, and I got a problem with it here with Chip Kelly. I made the comment the other day, and we've heard about, particularly, we're coming into draft time here now, folks. I mean, a week from now, we'll be into the third and fourth rounds of the NFL draft, or maybe even later than that at this point on Saturday. We've got a whole draft class coming in, and a lot of those recruits, those NFL recruits, went through something called the Combine a number of weeks ago. The Combine is a series of athletic drills and tests and what have you, but it's also then coupled in with interviews, some very tight, strong, tough interviewing processes that some of these draftees have to go through with regard to the teams. Individual teams get a chance to speak to some of the recruits, some of the ones that perhaps maybe they're a little more interested in. And one of the things that always comes out of that is you hear from some of the draftees after the fact that a lot of times the questioning that they get hit with from some of the coaches and some of the administrators of these teams, a lot of the questions they get hit with revolve around character. And it seems to me that if, in fact, we're going to be holding our players, and particularly our young draftee players, up to character issues, then we need to be holding those coaches who are asking the questions up to character issues as well. And when you've got a head coach who knowingly, or as I said, perhaps maybe unknowingly, but by virtue of not performing his job to be overseeing the program that he is in charge of, then in fact, you have to question that individual's character. It seems to me we have a double standard here. We're going to make sure that players are upholding character issues, but the head coach is no big deal. I disagree with that completely. Somewhere along the line, I feel, and make no mistake, I've always been a big Pete Carroll fan. I like Pete Carroll. I don't know anything about Chip Kelly, with the exception of what I've seen of how he operates on the field in a collegiate level. So I'm willing to give him a chance as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, and I will reserve judgment. This has nothing to do with a personal opinion about an individual. This has to do with a character and with a principle. If, in fact, you didn't perform your job, you shouldn't be allowed to move to a better job. You shouldn't be allowed to just run away from the problems that perhaps maybe you created for a particular program and to then benefit from it by going on to something else. I think that that's wrong, and I think it needs to be addressed, and I think somewhere along the line the NCAA and the NFL have to get together and figure out a way that they can address this, because otherwise I think you're going to start to see this kind of thing more and more.